We have a car currently in transit at the moment on the way from Freeport, Texas to Lagos, Nigeria. So this is a 2012 Hyundai Elantra. This is my personal car. I've had this car for about 7 years now. So this is essentially a private export. You know, you have private export, and then you have exports from like commercial exports that dealerships use, where they buy cars directly from auctions, sight unseen, and then have the cars picked up, all cars picked up from the location that it was purchased from and exported to Nigeria. So this one is specific to my car. I'm only speaking on my car, my personal experience. It may differ based on where you live, but I'm speaking from my personal experience exporting a private car from Las Vegas to Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. So what I did was I worked backwards. That's just my process. I worked backwards. The first thing that I did was to identify a customs clearing agent in Nigeria. Once I was able to identify that, I started working backwards. So through this customs agent, I asked them if they could recommend a shipping company that they've worked with successfully in the past, and that's what they did. The contacts that they gave me in the United States was just spot on. Okay, so I reached out to the shipper. That's the company that's responsible for getting the car out of the U.S. into Nigeria. So through them, I asked if they could recommend a trucking company that would pick up the vehicle at our home in Las Vegas, truck it to Freeport, Texas, which is the port, which is the export port, and then obviously rode on a vessel and shipped to Nigeria. So just through this series of working backwards was what made my experience seamless. Not saying that there wasn't any hiccups on the way, there were, but just very, very minimal. So when exporting a car to Nigeria, you could go actually two ways. You could use what's called a roll, which is roll on, roll off. That's if the vehicle starts and can be rolled on and off the vessel. That's considered roll. So it's not containerized. So this vehicle is just going to be secured to the vessel, open format, and exported to Nigeria. Or you could go the more expensive route, which I personally wouldn't recommend, which is the container route. Because when you are shipping a car in a container, there are pros and cons. So the benefits are you could, add your personal belongings in the car and ship other household items or whatever you want to ship in the container to the destination port. So that's the benefits. The drawbacks to that is you have no idea how long your container is going to sit at the port of Lagos or Port Harcourt, whichever port you want to use. And the longer your container sits, you get to pay what's called demurrage fees. So you get to pay, because if it stays there for a month, 2 months, depending on the backlog, that's going to come out of your pocket. So that is the danger or the disadvantage of shipping through a container. But with a ro-ro vessel, that one tends to move a lot quicker throughout the clearing process than a container does. And for me, time being a factor, I had to go the ro-ro route, which regardless of time, I still would have gone through ro-ro anyway, because it's just cheaper than going through a container. So the disadvantage of going obviously the advantage of going ro-ro is it's faster and it's cheaper and it's easy to clear. Okay. The disadvantage is you can't put any personal belongings in the car, not even in the trunk. Okay, so the car has to just go as is. It has to, all that car needs is just for it to be able to start. So what I did was I went and made a spare key. For those in the United States, I went to AutoZone and cut a spare key that I gave them I hold on to the original. So the original is what I'm going to use with the key fob when I get to Nigeria. But the spare key is just for them to be able to just move the car from here to the truck and move it as is wherever it needs to go. So it definitely has to start. Do they take non-working cars? I believe they do, but I think there are extra fees associated to a non-working vehicle. But if your vehicle starts, it can be shipped, and it can be shipped affordably. So another thing too, and if if you're sending this home for your personal use, which is what I'm sending it home for, the vehicle is not for sale. So it's for my personal use. Obviously, you have to get the oil change and get the car tuned up. I had the spark plugs actually changed it myself. Changed the spark plugs, got an oil change, replaced the front brakes the front brake pads. Last year, I had the rear brake pads replaced, so that one I didn't have to touch that anymore. So these are just a few housekeeping things that you have to do to make the vehicle suitable for your use. It was low at some point on Freon. That's the AC Freon. I had that fixed. So the vehicle is brand spanking new. It's operational. Nothing has to happen to this car other than just putting fuel in it when it gets to Nigeria and driving. Like they don't have to do an oil change for a while. They don't have, literally get in the car, put gas in it, and drive. So I had to have all of that done here before, just to give myself a peace of mind. So when I get to Nigeria, it's just a matter of just getting in the vehicle and operating it with no issues. What else? So the vehicle is on the newer side in Nigerian standards. It's a 2012. Ideally, most cars that flow through the Nigerian vehicle ecosystem are usually vehicles from, let's say, 2003 to 2009. So this being a 2012 sedan, it costs a little bit more than if it was an older vehicle. What else? I don't want to leave anything out in the process. So you guys saw the video of the vehicle being picked up here in Vegas, loaded onto a car carrier and shipped to Freeport, Texas. At Freeport, it went through a couple of days of customs clearance. So it has to clear the U.S. customs before it leaves the United States into Nigeria. So that took about a couple of days. It cleared over the Labor Day holiday weekend. And once the vehicle clears U.S. customs, it's released to be loaded onto the vessel. Grimaldi Lines. That's actually a very good company. That's who my customs clearing agent in Lagos recommended to use, Grimaldi Lines. But an individual cannot deal directly with the vessel. Like I can't just call up Grimaldi Lines and say, hey, I'm shipping a car to Nigeria. It does not work that way. So they use shipping brokers, forwarding companies, to serve as middleman between the client and between the customer, which is you, and the vessel line that you're going to be using. Okay, so keep that in mind. But you want to go with Grimaldi. There are fewer problems at the port based on the information that I received working with the broker that's dealing directly with Grimaldi. Is they have fewer problems. In Nigeria, just going through the Nigerian export chain. There's just fewer problems there. So again, you may have to pay a little bit more, but and that is okay. Everything is not always about saving money. If you pay a little bit more, you're essentially paying for peace of mind. Because ultimately, for me, my objective is get my vehicle to Nigeria safely and clear the vehicle safely. I don't want any damages. I don't want any of that. So even if I have to pay a little bit more, which is what we did, that's okay for us. Also, we purchased insurance as well. So in the case of fire, or damage to the vehicle while in transit from the US to Nigeria, we are completely covered. Now, once that vehicle gets to Nigeria, it's gonna need about, remember, this vehicle is unregistered in Nigeria, so I'm also working with a professional, like someone that I hired in Nigeria that's gonna handle the vehicle registration aspect of this. So when the vehicle gets to Nigeria, before it's actually moved from Lagos to Akwa Ibom State, it will be completely registered. It will be registered. So I'm having someone working on that too, in partnership with the customs clearing agent. So now, when the vehicle gets to Nigeria, obviously they'll start the process in approximately 2 weeks before the arrival date. So then that way it just kind of flows and flows seamlessly throughout the process. So you are not waiting for your vehicle to land before you start the export process. So you want to start in advance, and that is what we are doing. I am all about quality of service. Like, I want to simplify my business and my investments and my life as much as I can. If something starts becoming complicated, I run away from it. Like, I just don't have the time. And that is just my personal philosophy. Keep things simple, simplify your process. If it becomes a headache, it's probably not the right thing for you. So, and also using professionals, like people who are experienced in doing this is what we use, or what you should also use if you're planning on exporting a car to Nigeria for your personal use or for sale. Run away from using inexperienced people, your long lost cousin, your long lost friend who comes out of the shadows and says, oh, I can help you do this, I can help you do that. We want nothing to do with that. That is just, in my house, we want nothing to do with that. We only use professionals when it comes to our business or anything that requires a large sum of investment. We use our professionals. So now when the vehicle gets to Nigeria, it will be cleared in Lagos, and as I mentioned earlier, the registration will be processed before the vehicle departs Lagos for Akwa Ibom State. So we're gonna have somebody in Akwa Ibom State travel to Lagos to meet with the customs export agents, who will then provide a uniformed officer to escort that unarmed. Okay, unarmed. You can pay more for an armed uniformed officer, but in this case, I consulted with the customs clearing agent, is not necessary. All you need is just a uniformed officer to escort the vehicle from Lagos to wherever your destination is. Ours is in Akwa Ibom State, and just to make sure that things go smoothly and the driver isn't bothered on the road or stopped for whatever reason. And that's really the process. It's really not that difficult.